Okay, so welcome back to part two of what I am now calling a mini-series, and the mini-series is called Taking the March from the Streets to the Classroom. Alrighty, and I'm talking about the protests that are going out on the street where we're protesting not just the murder of George Floyd, but we're also protesting the institutional racism. We're protesting for social justice. Uh, Let me tell you how it happens on the side of schools, right? And so last time I spoke to you a little bit about the California dashboard, and I showed you some data from my own kid's school. She goes to Westport Heights Elementary, and I showed you that 1 in 4 students there is chronically absent. If you don't understand what that means as far as implications for your child, then you need to stop and think about your own job and what happens when somebody at your work, a coworker or a colleague, is out for the day and you're very busy and you have customers to take care of or students to take care of, and how that interrupts the flow of business, how that interrupts your flow, how stressful that makes it for you. Well, multiply that by the multitude of kids that are out of school every day, and then when they're out for extended amounts of time, what effect that's going to have over the span of a school year, not just for that individual student, but for their classmates. And then the question is, what are we doing at the school site to address that, right? When that kid that's chronically absent comes back to school, does the teacher have a nice homework packet ready for them so they can do catch up? Do we have some coordinated after school tutoring to help the kid come up to speed? Or do we let him sit there or her sit there embarrassed by the fact that, and humiliated by the fact that they can't follow anything that's going on in the class? And I'm going to tell you, it's a 50-50 take. There are some that'll do it and some that won't. And so my question is, what is that going to happen? Because we do have a disproportionate number of, once again, African-American and Latino students who fall into that chronically absentee category. Alrighty, and the fact that we don't know about its implications and don't do anything about it now that we know about it makes us all contributors to the mess. Okay, so you can't blame a specific race. In fact, today I'm going to show you some data by district. Okay, and so I'm going to start the way I did last time just to show you that I'm not pulling this data out of a hat. So I'm going to go to the California dashboard. And here we are. Let's see. Let's make sure we get the right one. Start with the California Department of Education. And I'm going to go to testing and accountability. And when I click there, I'm going to ask to be taken to the California School Dashboard. All right. And so if I click on this piece right here, on that link, it'll open up the actual dashboard itself. And so let's say I'm looking at Inglewood Unified School District because that's one of the school districts that I'm presently active in. By the way, I had a meeting with one of the school's PTAs yesterday, their executive team, and they were outraged by what they saw happening at their school. So Monday already, I'm going to be holding a meeting. Well, I'm not going to be holding it, but there's going to be a meeting, and I've now been invited to speak to the president of all of the PTAs at within the district. And so this is woken people up. So let's take a look here, just at Inglewood Unified by themselves. Here's chronic absenteeism. You can see that as a district, they're in the red. And when you actually look at the measure of this, you're going to see that 21.6% of the entire student population was chronically absent 2 years ago, 2018, 2019. 2019, 2020 is yet to come out. The school year is barely coming to a close, but things don't change that dramatically. And usually when they're this bad, they're not going to change for the better any quick, too quickly, I should say. And so if I look here at more details, and we see that there were a total of 6,332 students enrolled at Inglewood Unified. So 22% is a huge chunk of change. That's a lot of people. Think about the fact that California funds schools based on attendance, then you can take money away from the budget every day for every absence, where you can do some rough estimates. If we're looking at going, what story it tells me about chronic absenteeism, here is the pivot table that I created from it. And I'm going to just get that out of my face. And I'm going to hide my floating meeting. All right. And so, as I was saying, 6,332 students enrolled in Inglewood Unified last year, and 22% of them were chronically absent, out 18 days or more. And so if we look here, we see that 22% or 21.6, if that makes you feel better, of 6,332 is 1,365. So let's take a look at that. 1,365 students times a minimum of 18 days out equals 24,570 days of absence cumulatively by these students, and that's only if they miss just 18 days. Now, let's take that number and multiply it by $41, because based on what I read, a school in California gets paid $41 per student per day that they attend that school on time. Alrighty, so that's not even including the tardies. That's not even including the absences for the kids that are out less than 18 days. If you're out 17 days, you're not included in here. If you're out 1 day, you're not included in here. All right, those that money is also not given to the school district. And when you multiply that, and I read someplace for a report in Oakland that it was $85 per day that's lost when somebody's absent. But when we take that, that's $1,007,370. That's, let's say teachers, the cost to a district when you include medical benefits, and let's say they've got 1, 2, 3 years seniority, that's going to cost the district about $75,000. Break that, how many $75,000 positions can you take from $1 million? That's about, well, let's do it. It's going to be equal to that divided by 75,000, about 13 teacher positions. And I was presenting some of this data to the PTA at Woodworth Monroe, K-8 school in Inglewood. And one of the items was they were talking about the number of teacher positions that were going to have to be reduced. They're taken away. Teachers taken away. This might be why. All right. It's probably not the only reason why. It's $1 million. $1 million for a public school district is, in a poor neighborhood, is gold. And 13 teachers, we could have used those 13 teachers. I'm sure we could have, because one day I'm going to review the assessment data, and then you'll really be, if you don't get a punch in the stomach from seeing that, I don't know what is going to move you to stop marching on the streets or stop trying to pass policies that aren't broken. It's the implementation and enforcement of the policies that's broken. Okay, there's all kinds of civil rights and civil liberty policies embedded in the educational code, but nobody knows them. Nobody does anything with them. Now you know. Now you know. If you don't do anything about it, if this doesn't change by next year, stop the fighting. Stop the complaining. You got nobody to blame but yourself. Because let me tell you, Inglewood, some of these districts, most of these districts, it's not a whole bunch of white folks running the schools in the district. It's not. All right. In fact, the only school districts that were all white, and well, one had one other race, it was Asian and then all white, are Redondo Beach and Torrance. But let's look at them. Overall rate of absenteeism, 4%. Okay, what's the difference between these two districts and the other four? Well, that they're more diverse, right? So here we have African-American and Hispanics in Torrance make up 35% of the student population. Redondo Beach, 27% of the student population made up by African-Americans, whereas in Lenox, 94% African-American Hispanic, 86% in Lawndale, 96% in Englewood, 93% in Hawthorne. All right, so there's a whole other story to be discussed there, but if we look at the rate of chronic absenteeism by race within the district, you see that in Redondo, they're virtually the same as the other races in the district. So race, not the issue, okay? In Torrance, they're slightly above, you know, the other two groupings of subgroups that I made, you know, ASWH being Asian white, and then the PIMR, that's American Indian, Filipino, Pacific Islander, mixed race. All right, slightly above, and you see here, what you see here is the percent of the total student population African American Latinos make in Torrance, and then this second column shows you the percent of chronically absent students made up by African American, by the subgroups, and so you do see overrepresentation of these two subgroups in the chronically absentee student population, and we'll have to look into that later, but that is not nearly as severe as in Lenox, Lawndale, Hawthorne, and then this is off the charts. This is crisis. It's already, you know, it's already a crisis in America, but this is double the crisis, okay? Because in the state, you know, it's 10%. Now you know. Now, you know, I went in and got an answer for myself because I was wondering, I'm with you, you know, I'll donate, I'll march, I'll kneel with you, but when do we get to something that's going to change the lives of the children that we are advocating for, that we don't want history to repeat itself for? Some of that has to do with education, money, health. There you have it. Highest concentration of African American Latinos of all districts. Here in Englewood, come out to Englewood. Come out to the South Bay. Pick your district.